Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Cam Talks Rugby. And today we'll be talking a little bit about the Currie Cup and how I've personally found it watching these first three rounds. And I mean, one thing that really stands out for me is the level of competition with regards to the four smaller franchises. I mean, this year, like watching a team like Boland, for example, I mean, to see the amount of like the way they're playing their rugby and the level to which they're playing, I mean, they've claimed big names already in the first 3-4 rounds of this competition. And the crazy thing about it is the Lions that went and lost to Boland obviously in Boland, that was a URC team. Like, yes, okay, there were some players missing, there was some Springboks missing, and some highly respected players, but Boland look absolutely solid. Like their recruiting process, the players that they've brought to Boland, like Louis Schroeder, Sangweni, Juan Mostert. I mean, Juan Mostert was a player that was actually playing in Italy, was playing in for Rovigo, and they won an Italian championship like just 3 months ago. That's underneath the URC, under Zebra and Benetton. I mean, the recruiting that's gone into this and the preparation with regards to Boland, the packed stadiums, I mean, in Boland over these first three games, and look at what the Griquas and Pumas are doing as well. I mean, they're claiming big scalps and they're competing with the Cheetahs. I mean, the Cheetahs, this Currie Cup campaign hasn't been bad. They've been decent and they've got a really good team, including a Springbok winger, or almost Springbok winger. I mean, the guy's just come from Varsity Cup. Makaza. So they've got a really good setup going with our smaller unions, but it's sad to see that they can only play Currie Cup. And I mean, for me, it is sad because not many countries have this luxury of professional teams. And yes, okay, we lack the funds. Yes, okay, we don't have as much money as France or England or all these other big unions and national unions out there. And I just think that our smaller unions need more credit, man. They really do need more credit for what they're doing. Because for Boland to play the way they've played, as well as the Griquas, Pumas and Cheetahs, they've done absolutely fantastic to show this Currie Cup campaign. And the reality is that Sharks team that's playing now and that have lost the first three games, yes, it's a young team, but a lot of those boys are going to potentially play URC this year. They're gonna be foreshadowing the Springboks. They're going to be underneath them. They're waiting for the opportunity to get in, And there's not bad players in that Sharks Currie Cup team, for example, like Lee Marvin Matsubuko, Jean Smith, he's played for the junior box, Moyo. There's some really good players there, and that's just to name a few. But what I'm tend to seeing is, do our smaller unions need more recognition? Like, should they be competing for their own competition that gets them into the Challenge Cup, for example? Or should they be like forming with our bigger unions and helping them build a squad for the URC and Champions Cup or Challenge Cup, whatever they're competing in? Because that makes so much sense. Like, if you think of it, we've actually like just cracked the potential code to competing in the Challenge Cup and Champions Cup. And why do I say that? Because we heard the whole of the last 2-3 years that we've been associated with the competition, that coaches like Jake White have come out and said we don't have the squad. And he's got a very valid point. Yes, okay, he's not in the Bulls anymore. So it'll be interesting to see what Johan Ackerman goes and does with the Bulls. But it's just interesting to see how we can like create more squad depth for our URC teams. Like, imagine the Bulls forming with the Griquas or the Pumas, and the Sharks forming with Boland, for example, or whatever it is. I'm just throwing names out there, right? And creating a bigger team and combining as one team. So let's say if Boland and the Sharks play, and let's say Lucanio gets injured at 13, they can call up David Brits from Boland to play, and that Sharks team is just as competitive. Yes, okay, Sharks will have their number one, number two starters, or benching players that will come in and take a spot of a Springbok if there's an injury or if there's squad rotation, whatever it may be. But it would just be so much more interesting if our Sharks, Bulls, Lions, and even the Stormers could potentially use those players at Boland, or use those players at the Pumas, Griquas, and Cheetahs, and form some sort of collaboration between the two. And as soon as the season finishes, they go back to their respective Currie Cup teams, or something like that, just to further enhance the player pool and give some guys more opportunities to get a taste of URC, to rotate the squads, to get like a David Brits, a Louis Schroeder, or a Sangweni playing against a Toulon in the Champions Cup, for example, because it's just gonna help grow what Russie's created at the moment in this national team, in the Springbok team. Because like if you look what Russie's done, it's at least 60, 70 competitive players that could be selected to play for the Springboks right now. And yes, all ages, all different amounts of games that they've played, but there's a competitive edge right now to that, right? There's a really competitive edge there. And if we go in a step further and combine these smaller unions and give them the respect they deserve, or get them fighting for something, whether it be like the winner of the Currie Cup plays in the Challenge Cup, or gets a spot in the Champions Cup, and second place gets a spot in the Challenge Cup, I mean, that will be absolutely insane, because they deserve it. I mean, Boland has claimed, I mean, when they played the Lions, that Lions team was a URC team. Yes, okay, in Club Akanye and some big players weren't playing, I understand. But that was a really good URC team that the Lions put out there in that Currie Cup game. I mean, yeah, there were some young players that were playing like the likes of Bronson Mills, who's an absolute really good player, or Kennedy or Mpeku. So there were some good players playing there, and I just think that there's a lot of opportunity. Sorry, not Kennedy Mpeku. Kennedy Mpeku is his brother, but Mpeku. There's a lot of good players that were playing there that are gonna be playing URC this year. They're gonna be. And if you look at the Sharks, like guys like Matsubuko has just come back from Racing 92. Jean Smith, he's played for the S Under-20s. Moyo just finished and won a World Cup with the S Under-20s. So a lot of these boys are going to be playing in the URC. It's just like, how do we combine and not just use Boland for the Currie Cup and now we say goodbye when it's finished? Like, I mean, it's sad if that's the case, I think a lot of these guys deserve opportunities at the bigger unions, or if not at the bigger unions, at least to play in season for the bigger unions while staying contracted to Boland, or while staying contracted to Griquas, Pumas, or Cheetahs, whatever it is, I just think that there needs to be some sort of look in to this, because I mean, there's like South African rugby is in such good hands, and if you think about all the players that come from varsity cup rugby or school rugby, I mean, if we have those 4 unions and our smaller unions are getting looked at a little bit better, potentially a lot of the boys that are playing from school rugby or varsity cup rugby can get a look in. They can get actually looked at and pushed into the system, and not just being booted out or shipped over to Europe or American universities. So I think there's some looking needs to be done in there and looked in about into this, because it can't just stop at the Currie Cup. I mean, like, with all due respect, like, and I'm gonna be dead honest about it, the Currie Cup this year has been brought to life. But it's a shit competition if you compare it to the URC. And like, let's just be honest, it really isn't like the URC or the Champions Cup or the Challenge Cup. Like, that's the pinnacle of club rugby. And I just think that there needs to be some sort of look into the Currie Cup. A suggestion, my possible suggestions, I would potentially look at having the smaller unions as feeder clubs, but more evidence as feeder clubs. Not just like, okay, they've got 5 permit players at the Bulls, for example, from Boland, maybe like I don't know, Dave Britt, Sangweni, or Louis Schroeder, and they go and play for the Bulls in the Currie Cup. No, put the whole team in there, man. Like, create a huge pool of players at the URC level, so Ackerman can literally come in and be like, okay, cool, this is our 15 for URC, this is our 15 for Challenge Cup, and we rotate the boys as we go, depending on if we're playing Leinster or if we're playing Zebre, for example. I mean, like, it just creates a lot more options and give a lot more boys playing time. That's one way. Or, I mean, allow the Currie Cup to be some sort of feeder, and get permission from the European Challenge Cup and Champions Cup to let the winner of the Champions Cup, of the Currie Cup, to play in the Champions Cup, and the second place runner up to play in the Challenge Cup, for example. I mean, that's just going to boost the overall level of the Currie Cup as well. So look, guys, these are some ideas, but I mean, from the Currie Cup so far, credit to the small unions. They've really put their hand up there. The support is there, and they're absolutely smashing it. So look, and those aren't like the Euro C teams that are playing in the Currie Cup. Those aren't like, yes, okay, it's maybe the B team or even C team or some teams, but those are quality players that are playing there, representing the Lions, Sharks, Bulls, and the Stormers. So yeah, some thoughts, but let me know what you think in the comments below. Maybe I'm completely in my own lane and I don't know what I'm talking about, but you guys let me know. I know you guys will judge.